Welcome to Music Rules, a podcast for music that rules and rules that music.
That's right.
I am your host, Jack.
Yep, and I'm your other host, Fenn.
And today we're going to be doing a little mini episode talking about the new Basil's Kite release. Hey, Jack here from After the Pod. It's not mini at all. I don't know why I thought it would be mini. This is a long episode. Have fun. Basil's Kite's my band. And we're going to be talking about the album Shooting Tsars, which came out 1 week ago.
1 week ago, yeah.
Yep, 9 days ago it came out. So
here's something that I just thought of. I saw a shooting star, but nobody believed me. Actually, that doesn't work.
You're thinking of Bag Raiders.
I'm getting confused between Sneaky Sound System's UFO and Shooting Stars by Bag Raiders, so I should actually be saying, I'm in love with a shooting star. Okay.
Yes.
Anyway.
I've been listening a lot to that Shooting Stars song
I love
by
that
Bag
song.
Raiders, and I think it's because I've been typing Shooting Stars all around the internet.
But it's a good album. It's an excellent title.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, let's dive into this sucker. So I put up a little vote on Instagram and just said, what songs do you guys want to hear us talk about? What do you want to hear us discuss? Yada, yada. And the ones that came up were Sun is Smiling by Curious George, Train Song, and Backvark. We'll see if we get to go through all of them, but at the very least, we're going to go through 3 of them. So let's talk Sun is Smiling.
Let's do it.
And we'll play like a little sting of it now. All right. So
can I actually listen to it?
Yeah. Sorry, should we put it on?
Sun is smiling, such a pretty day. All the pretty girls, I'll make on my way. I have made outside, build me into your castle. Thanks for me up, and tear me in your asshole. Fight me, Harold Hobbs! Wanted to be a submariner! I didn't have the stamina! Oh! I'm such a mess! I'm calling out Chandras! I shot the fool! I haven't taken the pieces on school!
So this is kind of one of the earlier tracks on the album. When Jono and I wrote these guitar parts, we had this sort of thing where we really liked writing riffs that were very, how do I put this? Kind of melodically inconsiderate, just to the point of there's certain shapes you can put your fingers, certain shapes you can make on a guitar with your fingers that feel really good to play, but don't necessarily mean much melodically, aside from, I guess, being a bit dissonant. So that opening is kind of like, it's almost like the top of like a 13th chord or something, like. And then it's just the top half. Yeah.
It sounds so much less dissonant when you contextualize it like that. That's
In like a.
Yeah. Now you're just, Wes
Feels
Montgomery or something.
Yeah. It feels a bit sacrilegious or something. It feels a little unmetal. But yeah, so we made that kind of idea, and then we decided that, hey, if we're going to play it together in the context of metal or mathcore music, we should separate it by a really gnarly interval to make it a little bit more intense. I forget where the bass sits in this, but I know the guitars sit a fourth apart.
Okay.
Yeah, and the pattern is like a really quick 9, 5, 9, 3, 8. I think it's 34 altogether. Mm-hmm. And that sort of introduces that idea that will come up quite a bit in this song.
I love that rhythmic riff. It's so cool. And it definitely goes back to this idea that we talk about a lot, which is a rhythm that follows a melody rather than a rhythm that follows, a 4/4 bar.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to ask you about these sorts of rhythmic changes is how do you decide, like, kind of how do you decide how to count this? Because there's a lot of different ways you could count it, and you could almost like really simplify it and treat it like just 4/4 with cross rhythms or something. What's your MO for that sort of thing?
There's so many different ways you can try and count this stuff. I'm very much a disciple of a band called Meshuggah. That was sort of my introduction to this sort of rhythmically complex music, and their big thing is they have a hi-hat that's open on basically every every 1, 2, 3, 4 with like a rhythm that moves underneath, like digadun dun digadun 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 dun dun digadun dun dun digadun digadun digadun
Right.
dun.
So there's a regular pulse no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's part of their how successful they are is people can really get down to it no matter what crazy stuff is happening underneath. So I was counting this with kind of like a 4 underneath, but Isaac threw a little spanner in the works, which I'll get to soon, a little bit later in the song. So then we get to the verse, and the verse is based on a rhythmic concept that I've kind of used for a long time. It has these stabs, ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. So it's this idea of going small, medium, small, long, and I've used it a lot in different songs. It's just a fun little way to mess with rhythm. I guess a little formula.
Yeah.
The notes themselves I'm playing in it are based on some atonal chord ideas from a guy called Christopher Arp, or Arp Man Dude, and he made a metal theory DVD in which he shared all of the best ways to play some really gnarly chords on guitar. So those big stabs are like they're like tone clusters of like, I think it's like what, B flat, B and C all together, but they're separated by 2 octaves. So it's funny, like guitar generally is not really as good for those sorts of chords compared to like piano or something like that. So you have to do these really, really weird shapes, and you can see it in the music video. It's awkward to play.
Yeah. I guess the benefit of guitar versus piano is that you can really spread everything out. That's what I'm always really jealous of. And anytime I try to play like a guitar song on piano, because I suck at guitar, It's always really cool, like, because the chord shapes are really spread out, and so with dissonance, when that's really spread out, that's an interesting sound, I think. Now, who did the
Yeah.
vocals on this one? Did Jacob come up with the melody, or was it you who came up with the melody and the lyrics, or what? How did it work?
That was myself and Jacob.
Okay, together.
Yeah,
Nice.
Jacob took the first part and then took the second. I wrote these lyrics like 8 years ago. Like, it's really, really old. I mean, even like sort of making a reference to hating June rats, which is quite funny because people don't really think about them anymore. But that was right when they came out.
I guess June Rats fans still think about them.
That's true. Hey,
and they love them.
All power.
And they hate you, sir.
Oh, no. What's the Venn diagram, I wonder, of Basil's Kite fans and June Rats fans? I don't think it's very big. That's just my hunch. I don't know.
A perfect circle.
It's a perfect circle.
It's a circle full of contradictions.
Yeah, full of some really interesting folk in the middle. Yeah. So I guess I'll keep on moving on with this stuff. So the chorus has this big kind of break, and we did click this song, like this was all to a click track, and we had a lot of difficulty finding out what the tempo of that chorus was meant to be. I say chorus, but maybe it's not as obvious that it's a chorus. But the bit that goes boom da da bum 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 ba da 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 da. Yeah, it's sort of, when we did it live, it would kind of oscillate with the energy in the room and kind of what we were feeling ourselves that day and stuff like that. So
anything can be a chorus if you want.
Anything could be a chorus. Just repeat it a few times after the verses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's our first breakdown that emerges in the "Come Fight Me, Harold Holt" section. Little reference to our former PM who disappeared into the ocean.
Yeah. People don't think about that enough.
Yeah, people don't talk about that. What's with that?
I think it's like a CIA operative or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's totally a baseless assumption. But I think it's something.
I love
like
it though. I love all the baseless assumptions about the disappearance of former PM Harold Holt. He's a really interesting character.
Yeah.
So this song's so old that it was one of the tracks we were playing when we had a sax player, and he used to just cut sick over this section.
I can
but
imagine
in the recording,
that.
but in the recording it was Jono. He pulled a very last-minute cowboy solo, which was a lot of fun. And then we returned to the sort of main theme again at the end, 222. But then we move it up an octave. Classic little raising the stakes idea. You just push it up a little bit. Yeah, especially by a semitone, which is what we do. Yeah. So in this is what you brought up before about how do you count this stuff. So circling back to that. When Isaac began to play drums over this song, he started doing like a triplet rhythm on the crash underneath, like da 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 da, and I always used to feel like da 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 da. So suddenly we had to kind of rewrite the bass part because the bass used to just play straight fourths underneath, but then we ended up putting it in so the bass was following the crash because that felt kind of the most natural and I guess the most clean production wise.
Yeah, I definitely feel it with that kind of those groups of three. But I guess that's because you've rewritten it to accentuate
to be
the
like that. Three. I gotta say, he really opened my eyes to that three idea.
You talk a lot about like triplet rhythm, which is so funny to me because like I grew up playing in wind bands where everything is in 6/8, so I just was constantly playing like compound time signatures with groups of three. So it's really funny like that's like the one thing that you're like whoa
yeah, well
too much.
For me it's like a mind-blowing moment because like I don't want to say every, but a lot of metal music with those sorts of complex rhythms underneath does have a straight kind of 4 accent behind it.
Yeah,
and triplets are like really weird. I guess that's like a genre thing. Yes.
Should talk about the ending of the track?
Yes. Yeah. So the ending, we move into these like really kind of chuggy, and I remember in that bit, there's a great video of Jono kind of conducting that section. It's like triplets and eighths and stuff like that.
Triplet.
Yeah.
Triplet,
the most like the most uncool representation of like heavy music. Just a couple of guys in the studio going triplet fill.
The good thing about triplet is it's the right amount of syllables to
it's
reflect
true.
what it is.
Yeah, usually I say banana or
Banana.
Watermelon.
I say pineapple.
Pineapple.
Watermelon, yeah. Semiquavers is watermelon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forget all my fruits and rhythms, but
Banana is weird because if you're saying that for triplets, like the emphasis is on the second syllable naturally in that word. So you're going banana, like banana. It's so kind of.
You know why I'm thinking banana? Because I'm staring right at your Minions headphones you're wearing right now.
Yeah. I'm wearing Minions headphones and I have a Minions cup that says cuter together.
This guy's Minions crazy.
But you know, you'll just have to imagine that.
Yeah, unfortunately we're not a visual
audio.
medium. Yeah.
Audio only.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's these big chuggy sections. We're playing major sevenths. And then, what's his face? Jono is playing the same thing, but I believe it's up a minor third. So you get a real nice crunchy cluster of, I think, 4 notes next to each other.
Whoa.
Very gross, very apt for the genre. And then at the very end...
rhythm of the end.
Sorry, you go.
It's got this kind of like... I can kind of feel it in 4, and then it goes into those like big triplets. I really like that. I don't know. I don't have that much to say about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Sounds huge.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
That's all right. Yeah. So, yeah, at those sections, those big triplets. I
love
sort of
what
like,
Isaac's doing on the drums there as well. With the the open hi-hat, it feels almost like a real slow like disco beat.
Yeah, he really reimagined these songs in a big way when we presented them to him. Yeah, even to the point where it started to mess with us a little bit. Yeah, so the very end does that big triplet thing, dun 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 dun, little na 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 thing that we put in a while ago, and then we go into this big section at the end, which is just straight for bump 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 bump, and the sort of the vision in mind is like writing this kind of music. I always love to give people like an opportunity just to mosh, especially in my writing around this time. I just really wanted people to dance and feel good. So yeah, it's just this big slam.
Yeah,
thing.
that's cool because it's interesting to hear how people approach writing, because some people are like, this is just like therapy, this is just for me, you know. But I definitely always have an audience in mind.
Yeah.
So it's cool to hear that you do as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think everyone does, whether they kind of
admit
are
to
brave
it or
enough to share it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very brave of you to say you want people
thank
to
you
mosh.
so much. Thank you. I feel so brave talking about it. And then at the very end, we do like one little final mathy thing where we go, we play the first one as 4, and then we do like 5 tuplets, and then 6 tuplets, and then 7. Dun dun
Yeah.
dun 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 dun.
It's like a written out accelerando. It also reminds me of a drum rudiment that I used to play with my teacher. Like you do single strokes and you do them like crotchet, quaver, triplet, semiquaver, quintuplet, sextuplet. Just as a way of like building up the speed in each hand, but also as a way of dividing things.
Yeah.
It's funny. So for anyone who doesn't like, who thinks we're crazy when we're saying like banana and pineapple before, in a conducting course that I did at uni, the teacher was telling us like, you actually divide things much more evenly if you have a word with that amount of syllables to divide it by. So like for 5, you say university. Well, that's what I say at least. University.
Yeah, I've heard of a similar thing for like understanding polyrhythms. Like the Adam Neely one he uses is like pass the goddamn butter for like 4/3.
Yeah. Wash
one
the bloody dishes was what I was taught at school.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, there was one for 5/4 as well. but I forget. I guess you don't really think about it as much because you don't really put 5/4 very often. Hello, me again, recording after the podcast. The phrase I was trying to remember for 5/4 is I'm looking for a house to buy.
Oh,
Unless you're a freak.
5/4 is one of my favorites. Boom.
Nice.
Now really sound crazy.
Yeah, I'll line up those in post so we sound like super in time. They'll be so cool. Yeah, and we did that last increasing tuplet thing without a click, and just kind of.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because we didn't really
Just felt it.
we didn't know how to at that point. We didn't know how to even click that in. I think now I know how to do it. It's like you get the tempo. Say you're playing at like 170. You get the tempo, which is 170, and then you times it by 5/4, and that gives you the tempo of what 5 tuplets would have to equal to be the same as the tuplet before.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes sense, but I think it's easier probably to do it without a click.
Yeah,
It's
you're
probably
right.
Fine.
Yeah, I'll put the
It's like-
calculator away.
Yeah, no, yeah. But I guess that's the thing with polyrhythms. Like, if you break it down, it's just like division kind of, or like fractions or something, where it's like, okay, so if I have 20 even parts here, I can divide that by 5 and I can divide it by 4.
Yeah.
And that's how you create the polyrhythm. It's just by creating those like even parts.
Yeah. Yeah, and then looking at what's inside and finding a way to sort of smush it together. And I know that there's a band called Car Bomb, and their entire thing is just like tuplets, nested in tuplets and all this stuff. And they don't use a click. And it's very surprising because their genre of metal sounds very much like it would be the clicked type, but it's all free.
I guess they use the greatest click of all, the human
The
brain.
Yes, the human brain, indeed. All right, let's move on to Bi-Curious George.
There's a monkey!
So, compositionally, Bi-Curious George has always been a massive favorite in the band. It was kind of our first proper mathcore composition, and it wasn't written down at all. It was just done in our heads, which I believe now to be absolutely crazy behavior, because now I write a single riff and I'm right there in Ableton. The idea of holding it in my head is really, really funky, really weird. But that's how we did it. The main riff in the beginning... Oh, sorry. We should play this first so you can be a bit familiar. Hey.
There's a monkey! Curious George! Monkey with guitar. Monkey with guitar. I give up. Second. Monkey with guitar. Monkey with guitar, monkey with guitar. Monkey with guitar, This shit is bananas, This shit is bananas, I shit my pajamas, P-Y-J-A-M-A-S. I shit my pajamas, P-Y-J-A-M-A-S.
yeah, once again, written entirely in our heads, and then recorded onto an iPhone 4 while people were playing
I have
Skyrim
an
in the
iPhone
background.
5S.
You know, I thought of
Suck
you
that.
when I was writing notes. I was like, hey, I don't want Fenn to think I'm like dunking on his prehistoric tech.
Yeah.
I quite like the fact that you still got an iPhone 5. I think it's very cool. All of mine just get busted instantly. I don't know how yours is still going. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. They seem to have a shelf life of like 2 years.
I did have to replace the battery.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they could do that.
$80.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So you recorded it on an iPhone 4.
Yes, we
Very
did.
nice.
We recorded it on an iPhone 4, and that
Can I just say, sounds great for an iPhone 4.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, that just goes to show, right? You know, you don't need the latest
Jonathan
tech.
Took does wonders with that iPhone 4 recording.
He does. Yeah, we used it on each of the parts of the drum kit. Anyway, I digress. So the main riff in the beginning, the dungan 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 dungan, that is a 12-tone row.
I was thinking that.
Yeah, because Jono and I were really into that idea when we were writing around this time, and
A couple of young Schoenbergs over here.
yeah, a couple of young Schonbergs in Kiraville or wherever we were,
Yeah.
and yeah, we were just sitting around and we made this riff, and but the thing is, we didn't get through all 12 notes. I think we ended up playing like 10 or something, and then we're like, yeah, the riff's done. So
Yeah.
There's like-
I was just thinking like it's a really catchy riff for a 12-tone row, because 12-tone
Yeah.
music tends to not be super catchy.
yeah, tends to-
But it's you know, you can kind of sing it. Do 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 do.
yeah.
Kind of.
Did I ever tell you about that time I drank some like off soy milk and then went to go and see Weyburn's? Is that how you say it? Weyburn?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Weyburn's opera at the opera house,
Wow.
and it was like the most like disgusting experience of my life. Just feeling so sick, and then like having just atonal German music at me. Opera.
Wow.
It was
Very
very
nice.
grotty. I really felt like I understood the play. I forget what it was, but I'll put it in post. Hey, it's Jack in post. Turns out I got it really wrong. It wasn't Anton Weyburn. It was Alban Berg's Wozzeck.
It's like a 4D kind of experience then,
Yeah, truly disgusting.
happening
very
inside
grotty.
of your body and
Yeah.
in your ears.
And externally. And I was like, how do these singers even remember what the hell to sing?
Yeah. I saw a concert at the Opera House yesterday, and like these singers just must have perfect pitch or something, because it's just insane.
Yeah,
Like,
just to be able to
sing
reach
certain
to
things.
these completely like, yeah, unrelated atonal intervals in this very specific tuning without like backing from any sort of other instruments necessarily. Yeah, I guess they
Yeah.
practice and they're
Or if
good.
there is backing, then it's
Yeah,
completely like dissonant to the
if it is
vocal
backing,
melody.
it's playing like a parallel minor second away at all times. You know, it's crazy.
Sort of like a Basil's Kite song.
Except
Now we're back on
luckily we got
track.
our fingers. Yeah, nice. Luckily we got our fingers to kind of give us the right notes to go to. But yeah, there's in the kind of chorus sections, the bit that says monkey mania, monkey with guitar. It's like it's got these really quick chromatic runs that are separated by a minor second. And yeah, that sort of that riff, that is kind of the linking bit between all the sections in this song. It's just a really, really speedy, kind of loosey-goosey part. And then at the very end, I can't really pinpoint the moment or the time when we started using the lyrics from Hollaback Girl, but one day it just happened. And I think at that point, we're really into the concept of like, like metal songs that would build into like this really huge breakdown and everyone have that catharsis, and then building up into a second
headbanging
breakdown.
moment.
Yeah. And then building up into a second breakdown and then suddenly like pulling the rug from underneath everyone. So that's what happens at the very end. And we're very into Dillinger Escape Plan. I was listening to Mathcast this morning, and they were talking about this song, and they correctly identified it as being very influenced by a Dillinger Escape Plan. And
Right.
yeah, we build up in this massive section, cut to really clean guitars, and at that point we were really into, I'm going to say the name that I've never said out loud in my life, Steve Reich? Steve Reich? How do you say it?
Steve Reich.
Steve
It's-
Reich. Why did I think
it's
it was
Reich.
Reich? Anyway,
Some
Steven.
people say it differently. Honestly, they do say it differently.
They do.
But I always thought it was Steve Reich.
Well, we're deciding it here today on the pod. It is Steve Reich. So we were really into him at the time and really into his piano phasing stuff. Are you familiar?
Am I familiar?
Oh, here we go. Oh, yeah.
All you need to do is there's a video of one guy playing it by
I
himself.
know.
on
I was just
YouTube.
about to bring that up. And I love
my
that
God, it's
he
so
looks
crazy.
like he's in such pain while doing it. He's
I
like
tried to do-
sweating.
stuff like that. Like my piano at work, there's a setting called twin piano, and it's like you can play in the same register. So
Nice.
I've tried to do phasing stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also try to do it with my students when they're playing out of time.
yeah.
Like, anyway.
I find it like when I'm trying to do phasing stuff, I kind of end up really quickly skipping to the next division instead of going. It eventually
Instead
just
of getting
becomes
the gradual.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just so easy just to lock into that. But yeah, so in this, it's not quite phasing because it's a bit more cut and dry. But we're playing that 12-tone riff from the beginning. I'm playing it with 9 notes. Jono's playing it with 10. And so it kind of falls out from each other and then creates all these different kind of harmonic relationships.
Yeah, it's like the Steve Reich piece, clapping music.
That's it.
It's like a rhythmic displacement of
my
one
God.
unit every time.
I keep sort of like diverting this conversation, but have you seen the Friends theme song, but it's Steve Reich's clapping music?
I haven't. But
Oh
I
my
can, I'll
God,
check
dude.
that out.
It's so funny. You know that like beginning bit? No one told you that was going to be this way.
Yeah.
It just cuts to Steve Reich's clapping music.
Oh my God.
It's so good.
That's so dumb.
Anyway, I'll put it in the show notes for the listeners. But yeah, and then that song kind of finishes on a da-da, bum 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 bum. Yeah, just another reference to another part. And now we're on to Train Song.
Oh, can I quickly talk about my experience of hearing this song by Curious George?
Of course you can.
I think the first time I heard it, I'm pretty sure it was a gig that we played together at the PBC downstairs room, which is tiny. It was organized like super, super late, and it was part of the Basil's Kite, whatever it was called, Market Forces tour. I forget what it's called.
Yeah.
Where you made
Market
like
Solutions.
It was like business themed Market Solutions. That's right, and you
Yeah.
had those great polo shirts. I don't know, I'm pretty sure we played with Year 6 Disco. But anyway, this song, I remember like, yeah, you guys were just going really, really crazy. And then when it started, like, I just was like laughing at the Hollaback Girl quote. But then it was like so like sick at the same time. It's so hard to describe. It's cool how you use humor. It's really disarming, and it's really fun for like a metal band to do something like that is really like unexpected and cool.
Thanks. Yeah. It's
To
always been
legally
our kind of
parody
thing.
Hollaback Girl, it's parody. It's legal.
It is. It's a legal parody, and yeah, I think we always kind of like that sort of thing, especially for people who aren't necessarily into the genre or metal particularly. Like I know we played Yours and Ours Festival in 2018, and that was probably our biggest kind of audience we've ever had of people who had no introduction to us, to our band or anything, and people just like when you do funny stuff, or if you like, you know, kind of like put on the baby mask at the end and did a little baby dance. People, nobody cared about who I was until I put on the mask.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is actually really deep if you think about it.
It is so deep. I don't even know what that's from. Is it one of the Batmans?
I don't
Joker?
know. Maybe it's like Watchmen or something like that.
Yeah, I
Um,
kind of forget.
People also love Hollaback Girl, so
They do. They do. And you know what?
I
It was
remember
kind
speaking of Year 6 disco, at my Year 6 disco, they accidentally played the uncensored version of Hollaback Girl. So everyone was yelling, and I'm not going to include the swear word because this is a
This is a family
PG-friendly
podcast.
podcast, but
Yeah.
this SH is bananas.
Yeah.
So they were yelling that SH word extremely loudly,
They
and
were.
then the teachers had to shut it off. But yeah, you capture that the energy of how fun it feels to sing that part of the song.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? It was kind of a dated reference when we first wrote it 8 years ago. And I hope maybe now it's like become really cool again. It's that
super
old,
cool.
so I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to Train Song. So, and we'll make this the last one, I think, because we've been chatting for a bit. So, Train Song is the most new song of Shooting Tsars, and it is completely microtonal.
I thought you said the most Muse song for a
The
second.
most Muse song.
ooh, yeah.
Super massive black freaking hole right here. Yeah, just listen to this song, close your eyes, and imagine the Cullens playing baseball while Train Song is playing.
Yeah, I'm imagining that guy, whatever his name is, LaFontaine or whatever.
Oh, the
vampire.
from the Voltaire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
Voltaire, he floats along.
Voltaire, sorry. Yeah. God, I
They can
love
only
that
play in a
movie.
storm because the sound of the thunder masks the cracking of the bat.
That's right. Vampire baseball is just different to normal person baseball.
Yeah.
They they all have
Actually,
cool.
to me,
like-
vampire baseball is very normal, but maybe I'm just built different.
oh, you're a freak.
Yeah, Train Song. It's the newest one on the album.
Yes, and it is microtonal, and it is in the 10-tone scale that I created with some help from some
Brag.
microtonal friends. Hey. I was trying
Now,
to think
this
of
10-tone scale, is this like a... It's not equal tempered, or it is?
It's very close to equal tempered.
Okay.
And I kind of forget what it is sometimes because I just made it and then fretted it. And then some microtonal nerds, because they're the only people who are interested in this, they ask me what it is and I have to get out the diagrams that I made. But it's from memory, it's based on the 13th harmonic and the 7th harmonic. And
13th harmonic.
yeah, which is
Okay.
like a flat 6. That's
Flat
flat
six.
by about 40 cents from memory.
Okay.
And you don't
That's
hear
quite
it in
flat.
this song. It's very flat. It's a
very
flat
flat.
6. Hey yo, me after the podcast. It's actually sharp by 40 cents. So I had it wrong. Sorry. And then the 7th harmonic, which is of course a flat 7th by about 30 cents. Also me again after the podcast. I should have said this, but cents is what makes up a semitone. So there's 100 cents in a semitone.
Yeah, right.
I don't think you hear either of them in this song.
Oh, okay.
I think like there is
That
like
was a waste.
yeah, what was I learning all this for? I think there is like a melodic bit right near the end. But the next album we got coming, you'll hear more kind of obvious microtonal stuff. But yeah, so the bit I want to talk about in this song, and I think maybe we'll take a break so you can have a listen to it.
Waiting on a train, on a train, on a train, but it seems it's late again, again, again. All out, I'll change, but the change is late again. Waiting on a train. Ah! Waiting on a train. Burn can, I'll change the world next time around. Time is gradual. I'm running late, I gotta check my schedule. This time, it's serious.
Very, very sick song.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is definitely it's kind of like one of our first. It was our audition piece for Isaac on drums. Yeah, we played this song with a few drummers. One of them, which was Bonnie from Bonnie Songs, and she did a great job of it. But it was Isaac who was most like, I'll move to where you guys live so we can live and breathe Basil's Kite.
Wow.
So he got the job.
Yeah, Isaac definitely has his own like unique way of playing the drums. Just like the way that he hits and like the beats that he chooses and stuff. It's really really fun to watch live. It's like so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also he hits extremely hard too.
He does hit really hard. That's a really common thing.
I experienced at the last Sydney show that Basil's Kite played.
Yeah,
and the sound guy may have told me that there was a mic on the snare drum that he was not using.
Yes, of course. I remember that. That was the Highway gig. Sad news
Highway
about
Bar,
Highway,
which is RIP now.
Yeah, damn.
Sadly. Anyway,
let's bring the mood back up though. So, so I'm going to copy and paste a thing here for you to look at because I'm going to try and explain a concept that I think I might not do so great at explaining, and maybe I'll need the help of a teacher to help me out here. So, I want to talk about the ending of this song. It's the part at about 255. No, 155.
I feel like I know what you mean without listening even.
Yeah.
It's like where it becomes more melodic, right?
No, it's the bit after that goes, where he goes, I swear I'd change. Do-do-do-do-boom. This is a really weird rhythmic concept that I hadn't used before then. I think it's super cool, and I surely have not been the first person to invent this. But if I was the first person, I'm going to give it a name, and that name is rhythmic holonomy. And
holonomy?
Yes, and I cannot explain the concept of holonomy at all. But
okay.
it's a thing that I saw. I went through a massive like Rubik's Cube phase, like twisty puzzles and all that kind of thing. And holonomy, like basically, I'm going to give it a go. Screw it. I'll give it a go. I'll try to explain it. So,
screw it. Why not?
Holonomy is like if you have a spherical puzzle with like square pieces that move along. God, I wish I had a ball here to.
Okay, wait. Let me just imagine that in my mind's eye.
Podcast
Spherical
listeners,
puzzle,
imagine
pieces.
imagine a sphere. All right. Yeah, imagine like a little triangle cut out of the top left quadrant of the sphere. Now, imagine a shape traveling across this quadrant of the sphere, and each time this shape moves across to a different corner, the shape is oriented a different way because of the way that it moves across the sphere. So maybe it's a square, and maybe by the time
I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, by the time it does a full
Good job.
circle, it's like it's oriented like 90 degrees or like 180 degrees, a little bit different or whatever.
Yeah.
This is holonomy. So look it up if you didn't follow that. And hey, if you didn't follow that, I don't blame you. I ain't a maths teacher. I don't know
If you
anything.
didn't follow it, try listening again.
Try listening again. Close your eyes.
How about you just rewind about 2 minutes, close your
Yeah.
eyes,
Imagine
stop what you're doing.
Imagine that ball a little bit more with a little bit more clarity than you did before.
Yeah.
And that'll surely
Yeah.
fix things.
If you're into 3D animation, maybe you can create a mock-up.
Open up Blender. Go nuts.
Open up Blender.
Yeah. So in this, there's two distinctly different rhythmic patterns, and they're sort of smushed into each other. So the first one is 6/8, 4/8, 2/8, and then 4/8 again. And this just goes over and over. 6, 4, 2, 4, 6, 4, 2, 4. And then the second pattern is 4/16, 6/16, and 2/16. So that's the guitar bit that goes ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da. And then that just goes 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, 2. And what I did was I shoved rhythm pattern A into rhythm pattern B next to each other. So first,
Right,
the first,
so it goes 6, 8, 4, 16, 4, 8, 6, 16.
correct.
I see. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's like you're alternating between the
Yeah.
two. It's interesting you say that because when you listen to it, it sounds like this almost like a cut and paste kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I assume that's not how you played it, like that it was actually recorded like linearly.
Yes.
But it almost sounds like it's been done like in post-production. Okay,
Yes.
so there are these two different songs.
Yeah.
One of them is in this 8 pattern, the other is in this semiquaver pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. We
1,
did.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, da 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 da. 1, 2, 3, 4, da 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 da.
I think Jono employed. It's funny you say that because I think Jono, our producer / guitarist on this album, although he didn't write or play on this song, he what he did was he did like a very classic metal production thing, which is where when there's a gap in the music, where there might just be like one guitar playing something quietly to sort of intensify the sound of everyone together, you just cut everything. So you get the drums, like all the noise, all the room sound, and you just turn it off. So you hear this ba do 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 ba, and that like that little
so
space
good.
is just pure silence.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, it kind of just goes in like that. And I don't know. I think it might already be explained, but I'll just add this on as a little thing that will hopefully illuminate and not just further confuse the listener. So if we imagine the first pattern as A, B, C, B, because it's, what is it? It's because it's 6, 4, 2, 4. And you imagine the second pattern as X, Y, Z. It goes A, X, B, Y, C, Z. And then that's the second. Bear with me, guys.
To me because I'm looking at the message you sent me, but
yeah, I feel like this maybe
I'm
isn't gonna
listening.
work at all. But hey, in my notes I wrote all
very
these
simple.
letters down, and
A,
then
B, C, X.
and then B, X, A, Y. Basically, it means that every single bar is an entirely new rhythmic relationship. So there's moments where you hear the longest part of each rhythm section next to each other. And there's moments where it goes really quick. Anyway, I recommend doing some writing like this, dear listener. It's really fun. And it's like, it's methodical, but we played with what each section meant. So we messed around. So the first part of it is like all these open notes, and then as it progresses, it becomes boom, ba, and so on. Anywho.
Now, can I suggest a different rhythmic grouping for this?
Yes, absolutely.
And that is a little time signature I like to call a 4/4.
Oh, curses.
Okay, so you got 6/8,
Yeah.
and then you have 4/16. But if you think about it, your 6/8 is not really grouped like a 6/8. It's just like 6 quavers. So
Yes.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 e-ander. So that's the first group, right?
Yeah.
And then you have 4/8 plus 6/16 plus 2/8 plus 2/16. So that would be 1 and 2, and the 6/16 will take us to
7.
3 and 4. Oh, okay, then it doesn't work. Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Well,
so close to making it all work in 4/4.
Well,
But
you almost
the first part
can.
definitely does.
You almost can. And I think the way that Isaac counted it, because, I mean, look, this is all so freaking up here, like in your head kind of way of thinking of things. When I'm playing, I don't remember that we're going A, X, B, Y in this section. It sort of becomes just like, I know that this part is followed by this part, and it's just it's more of I'm less conscious of it. But this is how it was for the compositional process. Yeah, and then
I
guess
had another thought just of trying to rationalize it a little differently.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the first bar is 4/4, then it's almost like you have 2 bars of 7/8 after that, because it's like 1 and 2 and 3 and daka daka 1 and 2 and daka daka daka. Sorry. So then that next bit is like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 1 and 2 and 3 and, which is like a bar of 7. So like 1 and 2 and 3 and daka daka 1 and 2 and daka 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 done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 5 at the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. Da-ga-ba.
Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's definitely an easier way to understand it. I mean, you really come face to face with the shortcomings of like traditional notation and things like that with this sort of music.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
know
it's
of-
interesting. Like, I always have this thought when I'm teaching students how to sight read. It's just like
Yeah.
there has to be a better way.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's
Yeah.
everything about the way we learn music is so far removed from actually playing music.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was reading about the Suzuki method the other day, and it's sort of interesting. There's a strong focus on playing, but I just feel like it'd be really hard to. It feels irresponsible not to teach sight reading properly
Yeah.
within the musical culture that we exist in.
It's true. It's true.
But anyway.
Famously, I suck at sight reading. I am very, very bad.
And I'm famously
Pretty
good
great.
at sight reading.
Pretty great at sight
Pretty
reading.
good. I've done some accompanying for exams and stuff.
Nice.
That has made me improve
Yeah.
sight reading because you just have to learn a bunch of music really quick.
Yeah. I do wish I sort of had more of a focus on it in my youth, like learning how to do that.
Yeah, I feel like for guitar, like, I don't know, maybe it's not as important.
Well, you have
It's
guitar
like you can
tab.
probably read chords quite quickly and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
Which I
like
think is probably more important.
yeah, like once again, you just kind of learn what is relevant for your kind of focus. And
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I know that there's a band in Sydney called Anti-Guitar Trio. It's a trio run by Simon Timothy Dawes. He's the guitarist from Kurashimi.
Yes, there are guitars in this trio.
Yes. I thought you would have been
ironic.
fooled by the anti-guitar bit in the beginning, but no, there's 3 guitars. You probably could have guessed that too. And they all play reading notated music.
Wow.
And I looked at it and I was like, you guys are freaks. And I said that to them because they are freaks. Why would you do that when you have guitar
Ultimately,
tab?
though, the best option is whatever has the least amount of barriers to playing
That's
the
true.
music.
Yeah.
So maybe the way that you guys wrote, was it by Curious George? You just wrote it all by
Yeah.
ear, by memory?
Yeah, by rote. Yeah.
Like, in some ways, that's like this really pure kind of way of writing music is just by doing it and just until it's locked in.
Yeah. Or until it reaches a level of complexity where you go, okay, now I need to think about this differently.
I remember in high school learning jazz solos, right? Because I was playing a lot of jazz trombone, and my teacher encouraged me for one of the solos to try to learn it by ear and not write anything down, because then I would actually be emulating the character and the way that it was being played
Right.
instead of just listening to it, writing it out, and then practicing the notation.
Yeah.
So I thought that's an interesting way to approach learning music, is just by. So maybe in some ways the fact that you didn't write anything down for that song, maybe there's like a certain feel to it that you could not have gotten otherwise.
So when I was studying Balinese gamelan music, I remember reading the account of an ethnomusicologist who was talking about how he would spend the day playing gamelan music with the musicians, and then he'd go back into his like where he was staying and start to write down what they were playing that day, so he could have like a kind of like a recording of the music. And then he came back the next day and was incredibly surprised when it had all been changed. Like all the music is different. And then the guy who was running the ensemble, he seemed equally surprised that he would think that the music would remain the same over like over the night. Because he woke up, was like, I want to do it differently. So I guess this
Wow.
is one of the pluses of kind of rote learning, or like sharing music, not just using notation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a living, breathing thing. It's
Yeah,
not just a-
exactly. And it changes with the crowd or whoever's there. But
I think even in the history of notated music, like Baroque music, it was not always played in the exact same way. And a lot
Yeah.
of things were improvised or left up to the performer.
yeah, absolutely. And isn't that like a very forgotten thing now, isn't it? Particularly to do with Western classical music.
Yeah.
It's so set in stone in so many ways.
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I think that can conclude our chat.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sorry to all the people who voted for Backvark, but yeah, we had some internet problems and now we're a bit over it. So hope you had fun listening. And if you haven't already, get your ears around Shooting Tsars, out now via Dark Trail Records. And if you haven't gotten around Mathcast yet, get around that. That's a podcast run by the people behind Mathcore Index. And yeah, you should go and listen to it. It's cool. It's fun.
Very nice.
And I guess I'll say a big see ya.
Music rules.
Music rules. Bye.
Bye.